Hello, this video is for two Davids. Um, yes, so this is a build that I'm planning to use when the reset happens soon with the next patch update. And I just wanted to show you guys what it is really fast so that you can have an easy way to get through the game if you're looking to do that again or for the first time. So this build is based on the Raging Spirits, and I'm just going to show you guys what it looks like really quick. How this works is I'm running cast on minion death, and when the Raging Spirits die, they feed the cast on minion death, and I get some spells that come out of that using Comet and what's the other one here? And Lightning Conduit, and also Frost Wall. But Comet's the main one that comes out of the sky, and normally this spell is really slow. You can see it's got a 1 second cast time, and there's a +1 on that. So it's quite slow to cast it manually, but in this configuration, there's no limit really to how many you can get out in a second. So yeah, let's take a look at what that looks like. Anyways, when you shoot a fireball, it creates these Raging Spirits, and they will hunt down the closest enemy, and as soon as they get to them, they're going to die. And then we get a bunch of cast on minion death spells. It's quite simple. It's really easy to play. I just shoot out these fireballs, and then stuff comes from the sky. Yeah. And this build's extremely powerful. It can tear through bosses, any content in the game. You can see it just nuked a rare there. Does loads and loads and loads of damage. I think I came up with something like 2 million DPS. It's hard to kind of calculate it with all the variables. Anyways, we'll run back to town here. Okay. So with this build, it's based off of Raging Spirits, which is a spirit aura. And how this works is you want the Raging Spirits to die. How that works is with this amulet here. It says take 120 fire damage when you ignite an enemy. We go to the tree. Get this node here. It says all bonuses from equipped amulet applied to your minions instead of you. So every time Raging Spirits attacks an enemy, it's going to ignite them. Because we're using the Infernal Legion support gem here. And as soon as it ignites them, they instantly die, and it starts to feed the cast on minion death. So, Raging Spirit's the main spell here. You want it to be as low a level as possible. Level 4 is the minimum, so that they don't have a bunch of life. You want them to die as soon as possible. With the Fire Flower Amulets doing 120 damage, so as soon as they ignite someone, they're dead instantly. And running in there, I got Wildfire, which spreads the ignite. Infernal Legion, Feeding Frenzy, which says minions take 20% more damage, helps them die faster. Minion instabilities, in case they don't happen to die, they will anyways. And right, so that's the main spell. And then Fireball is the main spell that you cast. It's the only one I really click. Got Arcane Tempo with that, Unleash, Scattershot, and Lightning Exposure. And I'll explain the Lightning Exposure part in a second here. Cast on Minion Death. I'm running two versions of it. The first one is only Comet, and the second one I have Frost Wall and Lightning Conduit. In the Comet, we've got Rising Tempest, Spell Echo, Concentrated Effect, and Inspiration to make it all a bit cheaper. The Rising Tempest here says 12% more elemental damage for each skill used recently of a different elemental type. For shooting the fireball, and then the cast on minion death is casting a cold spell and a lightning spell, so we get 36% more elemental damage from this support gem there for not a lot of cost, which is good. And then in this one, I'm running Frost Wall, Lightning Penetration, Super Critical, and Lightning Conduit. And the reason I have 2 spells in here is Frost Wall has like a counter on it. You can only cast it 3 times existing on the screen or whatever. So Lightning Conduit's in here so that it will pop off in between those timeouts. Anyways, the main part of this build is the Archmage. Archmage Aura says non-channeling spells getting 8% of damage as extra lightning damage for each 100 maximum mana you have. And I've got 3,500 mana, so that comes out to something like 280% extra lightning damage. It's not an increase or more, it's just extra damage on top of what you're already doing. And that is the main focus of this build. It really is massive, massive damage on the Comet here. Each Comet's doing 73,000. And if I turn off Archmage, it goes all the way down to 20,000. So almost quadrupling damage from Archmage there. And that's all lightning damage, but that's okay. It's fine. And so that's why we pump on the lightning damage. And take a look at the last part of the build here. It's the Ascendancy, got the Stormweaver, and the main thing here is we're going for the shock. Apply 2 shocks at the same time, and all damage from hits contributes a shock. So the fireball can apply that lightning exposure. It's going to shock. And then how the lightning conduit skill works is when it consumes a shock on an enemy, and the more shock that's on them, the more damage it does. And this is a really nice cleanup thing for when the comets have already hit or haven't hit yet. It does a little bit of damage overall to just kind of clear grays and stuff. And then, so you may have noticed when I was playing this thing as a mana drainer, if you really get into it, the mana just drains right out because you're dropping so many comets and other spells. So over here, this one gives you Arcane Surge, and this one gives you 1% increased effect of Arcane Surge per 15 maximum mana. So that's a shit ton of effect on that. And then I also dump into it here, increased effect of Arcane Surge. And then, yeah, I'll give you guys a quick look at what the tree looks like. Nothing too crazy here. These are the nodes that deal with the gaining energy for the trigger skills. So I took all of those, and there's some more down here. And then the rest of it, I've got a little bit of freeze stuff here, which is really good. A couple of freeze nodes. And the rest of it is a little bit of critical and just mana, dumping into mana and mana regen. Because that's the main problem with this build is you just run out of mana really fast. But I've invested pretty heavily into it. So yeah, I got 1,200 mana regen a second, and that keeps it going pretty good. I can generally stay on top of most battles. But there's just one more thing to this. When you run into a boss, there's one there, perfect. I'm going to use Frostwall to take him out. Manually casted Frostwall. So when the comets start coming from the sky, they explode those frost walls. And I had the manually casted one that just does a lot more damage than the auto cast one. The reason I use the auto cast one is frost wall behaves as an enemy and a land feature. So when the fireball, oh no, I'm frozen. When the fireball hits it, it's gonna do its thing there, just like it would if you shot it at the wall or an enemy. So yeah, you can see how powerful this build is. That's just one shot at a pretty scary rare there. So, and this is a tier 15 map, level 88. Yeah, and the nice thing about this build is Anyway. Yeah, you can just clear the screen with one click. I'm not doing a ton of clicking. Great, because that's here. The really nice thing about this build is it only has one required item, which is the Fire Flower Amulet. Everything else you can get away with whatever. All my items are mostly rares here, and I'm just pumping into mana, trying to get as much mana as possible, trying to get the high mana rolls. The higher the mana roll, the more expensive the piece of gear is, for this reason. But yeah. And then this one's kind of cool. This one gives you energy shield even if you're using this Eldritch Battery thing, which says converts all energy shield to mana. For whatever reason, this still will give you a base energy shield. Yeah. Anyways, easy build. Starts at level 52, which is sweet. And you can just use whatever skill to get to level 52, and then you can start playing this build right away.